Welcome all.
Okay, so good morning. Welcome to the BACnet International Seminar, Lighting with BACnet. First, I want to introduce myself. My name is David Fisher. I'm the president of a company called PolarSoft. And I've been personally involved with BACnet since the very beginning, back in 1987. Today, I serve as a consultant to the BACnet SSPC that maintains the standard going forward. So let's go to the next slide and talk for a moment about the history of lighting and BACnet. What many people don't realize is that lighting as a concept has always been part of BACnet from the very first day that we sat down to talk about what BACnet should be. We had the idea that we wanted to unify all of the communication and interoperability between all different types of building systems, not just HVAC, but also lighting, security, all of the things that make up the control of modern buildings. Now, back in 2001, we created what is called a working group inside of the BACnet committee, specifically to discuss and study lighting-related aspects of the BACnet standard. And so it's been a very long time, 24 years, in fact, that we've been working on lighting-specific features that are represented in BACnet. And today, BACnet has mechanisms that allow us to implement very complex lighting control in an interoperable, vendor-independent manner. And we're going to spend a lot of time talking about that and why that's critically important. So how does BACnet help with lighting, or in particular, lighting control in buildings? One of the things that we've done in BACnet is to define objects, that is to say, organizations of information that are specific to lighting applications, what we call a lighting output, a binary lighting output, and channel objects. And we're going to spend some time talking about each one of those things and why they're important. It's also important not only that we have an object, a place we can go to look at the status and to command individual lights, but also that we standardize lighting operations that aren't just turning lights on and off. But these days, it's very common for us to have lights that dim. So there are concepts that we define in BACnet for lighting operations, such as fading, ramping, stepping, toggling, and the important idea of blink warning. It's important in lighting in particular that we have an efficient mechanism for distributing simultaneous operations across many devices. If I have a ballroom that has 100 different luminaires in it, and I want them all to dim simultaneously, there may in fact be multiple devices controlling those luminaires that need to act together in concert. Increasingly important in lighting these days are the ideas of color and color temperature. Back in the day, we didn't think about stuff like that. We just talked about lighting in terms of its absolute luminance or brightness. But today, color and color temperature are important ideas in lighting and have many applications. The point being, we want BACnet, or the purpose of lighting in BACnet, is to create a vendor-independent and interoperable mechanism. What I mean by that is that every vendor can interoperate with every other vendor. A light from vendor X can be controlled by a controller from vendor Y. So some people who are familiar with BACnet, particularly let's say, traditional ideas in BACnet, have said, well, if we have lighting devices, why don't we just model them as if they were binary values, or in the case of dimmable lights, analog values? And in fact, there are quite a number of BACnet-based lighting systems that are out there in the market that do exactly that. But the problem with that approach is that it doesn't have any standardized concept of operations like fading, that is to say, dimming up and down, or ramping, which is dimming up and down at a particular rate of change, or stepping, which is the incremental increase up and down. There's no standardization of blink warning, which is a very common application where at the end of a scheduled day, the lights may blink briefly in order to warn occupants that the end of the scheduled day is about to occur. And if they want the lights to continue to be on, they have to get up and do something. There's no standardization of color, or even the idea of what it means to be a colored light, let alone a colored light that changes color over time. And also with binary values and analog values, there's no easy mechanism to do multiple device simultaneous operations, where I want, for example, a group of lights potentially on different controllers to be able to turn off and on simultaneously, or equally important, to do operations like dimming in a simultaneous way. So one of the ideas that's critical in BACnet, and in particular when we're talking about the application of lighting in BACnet, is the idea of organizing different points of information within the control and automation system into what BACnet calls objects. We can think of an object as a box, and the box has various things that we can talk to. So from our workstation, I can go to a binary lighting output object, and I can find out its present value. Is it on or off? And in fact, I can write to or change the present value as a means of turning it on and off. But there are a bunch of other parameters, let's call them, that we can use to control and monitor that light. There is a command engine that allows it to evaluate not only on and off, but also advanced concepts like warning and toggling being the flipping of the state of something. So if I have a push button and the light is off, if I press the button, the light comes on. If I press the button the second time, the light goes off. That's toggling. And similarly, if I'm in the middle of a fading operation that's fading, let's say, over a period of time, I can stop that operation in wherever it is. When I have this concept of a blink warning, the idea is that each space is controlled in terms of its lighting against a schedule. And in fact, when we get to the end of an occupied period, blink warning allows us to blink the lights as a means of signaling to the occupants that we're going to turn them off very soon. But we give them some egress time, some time to leave the room or to get up and press a switch that gives us an extended period of occupancy. And during that period of time, the egress is active. In other words, we're about to turn the lights off. We may want to monitor the actual power that each light output is consuming. Every time we turn on a light, particularly if it's a large light, we may want to keep track of the number of times that we've turned it on, the so-called strike count. That's really important for certain kinds of lights that can only be cycled so many times before they require maintenance or replacement. And similarly, we may want to keep track of the amount of time that each light is on, the so-called elapsed active time. Now, an important idea in all lighting outputs, and particularly in binary and analog lighting outputs, is that the output from our controller, which is supposed to turn a light on and off, may or may not actually be turning it on and off. And it's very common that there are external devices like hand-off auto or HOA switches that allow a human to manually take over the control of the light. For example, switching it into the hand or on position or into the off position. When that happens, it disconnects the light's control from the main controller. And so it's nice in many controllers to have an extra input that is monitoring this external disconnection of the lighting output. And we call that HOA feedback. So this more advanced model of what a single on-off lighting output looks like is much more sophisticated, for example, than a binary value object, which is just simply on or off. And so one of the things that having binary lighting output objects provides for us is a much richer and, let's say, multi-function type of control model for each individual output. Let's look at another object for BACnet that's related to this on the next slide.